Hello, my name's Michael Conneely, and this video and its associated blog post are all about January 2024 astrology, the first month of the new year. And I want to wish you the very best for this month, this start, and for the new year. So basically, January, or indeed the winter solstice, the shortest day just before January starts, is all about doing vision work or a ritual about what you want to delete from your life in the upcoming year. And indeed you can burn the list, but also what you want to achieve in the coming year, and certainly review that piece of paper at least once a month, maybe on every new moon and full moon. This January, because of the position of Saturn so super strong, is certainly a year for tying up loose ends, for identifying more deeply your karmic call and spiritually correct pathway now. For various factors, it's a really good year for bringing your intuition into even deeper focus so that you can grow your spiritual realizations and your awareness, so that you can bring in healing practices. And because of the position of the nodes of the moon, January, this first month of 24, is absolutely ideal for highlighting the management of your health, including making your healing practices more authentic and more powerful and more accurately for you by bringing your intuition into your choice of medicines, healing techniques, indeed extending into alternative techniques as well. Now, a statement of the exact planet movements in the month of January 2024 is at the foot of the accompanying blog post. So this delves less systematically but more evocatively into the key points. And you can see all the charts, Western and Vedic, for the new moon and the full moon, the ephemeris and the asteroids, in the January 2024 page of my Star Wheel Astrology website. The January 2024 page is under the More drop-down in the menu. It's on its own. 11 more months are to come, and may they be wonderful. Okay, let's dive into the details. There's a messy start to the month, as indeed there was a messy ending to December. January starts with the horribly messy phase of Mars and Mercury retrograde in Scorpio to Sagittarius Gandanta zone. Mars conjunct Mercury retrograde just a bit before the new year starts, with pressures, messes, risk of angry speech, overrunning. But equally, because it's the Gandanta zone involved, and I'll be talking more about what they are later in this video, there's insights and breakthroughs possibility. And so we need to not get dragged down in the mess, but create space for the insights and give them space and fit the needed work in to manifest and realize your insights and intentions. You see, Mercury, well, as an example of the Mars-Mercury mess, I've just spent a couple of days, ending today, trying to deal with the loss of internet for one of the guest units at our healing centre here in the west of Ireland. Trying to work out why the problem was, why the guest couldn't get internet, and then finding that there was no signal to their router, and so dashing off to the nearby town to buy 2 new 30-metre long internet cables, and then crawling around the roof space to find that actually a mouse had gnawed through their original internet cable, and indeed careless plumbers had damaged a long gash in another internet cable. So running the cables, wrestling with mini trunking, trying to get the lid on. So very, very Mercury retrograde plus Mars. And keynote is we mustn't give way to the potentials for anger or violence or defeat that are here in this planetary combination. And of course, you can be sure, can't you, that I didn't lose my temper like most people would with the chaos that I had to suddenly deal with on top of all my other work. Okay. So, does the Mercury-Mars thing get better? Well, I'd say the Mercury energies get better from mid-January onwards. Mercury starts the month of January retrograde at 28 Scorpio in the Gandanta zone in Jyesta Nakshatra. Mercury actually goes direct on the 2nd of January at 28 Scorpio, still of course in that Gandanta zone. Now, what is Gandanta? Well, the 3 Gandanta zones, it's so important to know about them, are water sign to fire sign transition points. Only Vedic astrology knows about them. They're zones of immateriality. They're zones where we experience this world as unsupportive, often supremely so. But great spiritual realizations can come from the sufferings of the experience of immateriality. Now, I'd like to explain that only Vedic astrology knows of these 3 Gandanta zones, and indeed you have to use the sidereal zodiac to identify them. I discovered this 28 years ago when I read one sentence regarding my natal moon at 29 degrees 56 Pisces. Moon in the Gandanta zone means that mother will not be there for you. And that one sentence told the whole of the essence of my life story in one sentence. So I realized at that moment that I had to add the vastness of Vedic astrology to all the depth studies I'd already done in Western astrology, particularly Western psychodynamic astrology, because you absolutely do need both. Otherwise you can sadly utter nonsense. When you can combine Western and Vedic astrology, you avoid saying nonsense. And you can encompass vastness. And of course, Western astrology adds in the outer planets, which much of Vedic astrology does, but it also, and I've learned the importance of this, adds in asteroids, Chiron, Lilith, Ceres, Sedna, and more. You really do need to do this because, of course, those energies described by the outer planets and then Chiron and then the asteroids have, of course, entered the human consciousness. So astrology has to upgrade to cover that growth. So, to go back to Gandanta, Gandanta also means the knot at the end, the karmic knot at the end. It's where the transition from water sign to fire sign occurs. And the transformative energy of fire clashes so ill with the fluidity of water. You know, imagine knocking the kettle over and all the damage that does. And that's a small metaphor. Those three Gandanta zones are actually dissolution. They're a turbulent energy for unique, deep-rooted karmic issues to arise and ideally to be dealt with and burned in this life. Can be the end of a cycle of lives. They're the destruction of the material, but note that they can make us so really ripe for major life shifts and spiritual awakenings. But add to this a similar energy that Mercury is actually square Neptune at the beginning of the month. Now, it isn't an easy energy combination because Neptune can drain Mercury. Neptune and Mercury can combine to create delusionary plans. They can combine us to lure us into telling lies. But these two planets can also combine to gift us abundant information, the power of sympathetic or compassionate thinking, intuitive thought, the grasp of the most subtle and attenuated correlations and relationships, the preservation of needed idealism, presentiments, spiritual or mental cognitions, the desire to map things out intuitively in advance, longings for regions afar, spiritual relationships and connections arising between people. All these come out of, the positive end of the Mercury-Neptune combination. And regarding Mercury retrograde, well, Mercury retrograde occurs 3 or 4 times a year. The period lasts around 24 days. It sends a problematic energy into your thoughts and communications. There's confusion, anxiety, disagreements, technology and IT breakdowns, hence me crawling round the attics, travel delays, postal problems. It's a bad time for business negotiations. It's a bad time for truth and accuracy. But it can be good for memories from our past. Note that there are actually 3 phases to a Mercury retrograde period. Mercury travels direct, and then over the same degrees, called the retrograde zone, Mercury turns and travels retrograde, and then it travels direct again. The most messy, intense and risky times are the few days either side of the exact retrograde and the exact direct station. So in the month of January 2024, Mercury makes the following planetary movements. Mercury enters Sagittarius in Mula Nakshatra on the 8th of January, still in the Gandanta. Mercury leaves the Gandanta on the 11th of January, and Mercury enters Purvashada Nakshatra ruled by Venus on the 20th of January. Note that Mercury is conjunct Mars on the days around the 26th of January, so let's try and avoid irritation, impatience and shouting confrontation around the 26th of January. And Mercury ends January at 26 degrees Sagittarius. And by the way, we've gone in this transit from Mercury in Scorpio through the Gandanta and into Sagittarius. And so there are big changes to the background energy infusing Mercury. And Mercury in Sagittarius is very different from Mercury in Scorpio and Mercury in the Gandanta. Mercury in Sagittarius is wise and good thinking, original and abundant. So let's make the effort to note that a part of it and to manifest that part of Mercury energy from the 8th of January. Okay, as I said, Mercury and Mars were combining at the end of December and the beginning of January. Now Mars starts the month of January at 3 Sagittarius in Mula Nakshatra, having just left the Scorpio Sagittarius Gandanta. A very messy transition for Mars to go through the Scorpio Sagittarius Gandanta. But it's just leaving it when the month starts, and Mars enters Purvashada Nakshatra, within Sagittarius, on the 15th of January, Purvashada ruled by Venus. And Mars ends the month of January at 26 Sagittarius. And remember to tap into the positives of Mars energy in Scorpio. Cheerful, expansive, jumps at opportunities, goes for spiritual knowledge. Okay, Ketu, the south node of the moon, tremendously important transit to understand. Ketu, the south node of the moon, has been transiting Vedic Virgo since October the 30th, 2023. When Ketu enters Virgo, the first task is to avoid becoming more critical, to avoid manifesting the critical nature of Virgo. And I've noticed people with Virgo emphasis becoming so much more critical in the way they relate to people and in their speech since Ketu entered Virgo. And because it's Ketu, Ketu's about our past lives. We come into where Ketu is in our chart at the moment we're born. And Ketu carries our past life karmas, our ancestral issues. And so during this Ketu transit, particularly if you have planets in Virgo, and especially if you have your nodes of the moon in Virgo, absolutely you must do past life readings and ancestral readings and healings. I've just had my Ketu return of Ketu going through Libra, and people came from nowhere to say that they had been moved and told to give me a past life reading. I'd never heard of them, they'd never heard of me. And learning from the past life readings, I saw so much more in my astrology. And I started such a long program of healing. It's still ongoing, although, the nodes have changed signs since on the 30th of October. I'm so grateful for the growth and healing I made during my nodal return, my Ketu return. So do you know how to spiritualize Virgo? Well, Virgo at its highest is about health, healing and right living. So you must survey now, at the start of this Ketu transit through Virgo, what are your healing needs now, your health and healing needs? You must bring in new healing methods. They might be dietary, they could be holistic or organic. It's an ideal time to start a changed diet. My diet's changed a load of things. I just had the sudden intimation. I've got to give this up, got to give that up. And I was helped by wonderful herbs I've been prescribed. So you move to a diet and a health regime that's more right for your body, your body rhythms and your life. And also, we also have to grow our intuition and the breadth of our intuitive methods. And that's because when Ketu's going through Virgo, Rahu, the North Node, always exactly opposite, is going through Pisces. Let's look at Rahu North Node in Pisces. With Rahu North Node in Pisces, the highest demand is for us to use our intuition a lot more fully and broadly and deeply and get out of the box. And of course, Rahu's only just got into Pisces. Rahu is still in the Gandanta zone, that zone of immateriality that I described a few moments ago, that can open us to the God realms. And Rahu, always retrograde, is closing steadily on Chiron, the wounded healer, which of course is also in Pisces. Rahu's at 25 Pisces at the start of January, Chiron's at 22. They're closing on each other. Such an important opportunity. Rahu in Pisces conjoining Chiron, your wounded healer placement. Check out the nature of the key wounds you've been carrying in this life and what they do to you. Use intuitive methods to perceive them fully, to perceive how they were put into place, to perceive what you have to do, how you have to hold yourself, carry yourself forward to achieve healing of them. Survey your wounds, survey the methods you're using. If necessary, changing the methods. Neptune, well, having talked about